If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to watch them destroy it, then please stay with me until the end of this story. And if you believe in love, loyalty, and second chances, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs strength today. Because what I am about to tell you is not just my story. It is the story of millions of women who loved too deeply and were left too cruelly. I used to believe that marriages only broke in movies. That betrayal belonged to strangers, to dramatic stories online, to whispered gossip between neighbors. I believed that when two people promised forever, forever truly meant something. My name is Sarah. And for 12 years I believed I had the happiest marriage in the world. Daniel and I met when I was 24 and still learning how to survive in a city that moved too fast for my shy heart. He worked at a small architectural firm, always smelling faintly of ink and coffee, his sleeves rolled up, his smile gentle and steady. He wasn't loud or flashy. He was calm, reliable, the kind of man who listened when you spoke and remembered the smallest details. When he asked me to marry him, it wasn't with fireworks or violins. It was in our tiny kitchen, while pasta boiled over on the stove and smoke filled the room. He knelt in his socks, laughing nervously, holding a simple silver ring. "Sarah," he said, "I don't know how to give you a perfect life, but I promise I'll give you my whole heart." I said yes before he finished the sentence. For years we built a life that felt warm and safe. We bought a small house on Maple Street with white windows and a crooked mailbox. We planted roses in the front yard. We argued about paint colors and laughed over burned dinners. We dreamed of children, of vacations, of growing old together on a quiet porch. I gave him everything I was. I supported him through long nights at work, through failed projects, through moments when he doubted himself. I handled the bills, cooked the meals, remembered birthdays, planned surprises. When his mother fell ill, I stayed beside him at the hospital, holding his hand while he cried. People used to tell me, "You're so lucky, Sarah. Your husband adores you." And I believed them. Until the day I noticed the silence. It started quietly. Too quietly to fear. Daniel began coming home later than usual. At first, he blamed work, a new project, tight deadlines, important meetings. I nodded and reheated dinner without complaint. That's what supportive wives do. Then his phone began to change. He used to leave it everywhere, on the couch, on the kitchen counter, sometimes even in the bathroom. Now it never left his pocket. If it buzzed, he checked it instantly. If I came near, he tilted the screen away. One night, while brushing my teeth, I asked casually, "Who keeps texting you so late?" Without looking at me, he said, "Just colleagues." But his voice was different. Flat, too fast, and something inside me tightened. Over the next weeks, the distance grew. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped touching me without reason. Our conversations became short, mechanical, polite, like strangers sharing an elevator. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I would wake up and find his side of the bed empty. When I asked where he went, he said, "Couldn't sleep. Needed air." I believed him. Because love makes you blind in the most dangerous ways. The first real crack came on a Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry when his phone, forgotten on the table, began vibrating. The screen lit up. A name I had never seen before. Emily. The message preview showed only 3 words. "I miss you." My hands began to shake so badly that I dropped a pile of shirts on the floor. I stared at that glowing screen, as if it were a ticking bomb. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I told myself there had to be an explanation. A colleague. A mistake. A joke taken out of context. But deep down, I already knew. When Daniel came out of the shower, towel around his waist, humming softly, I held up the phone. "Who is Emily?" I asked. For half a second, just half a second, fear flashed across his face. Then it disappeared. "She's a client," he said. "And she tells clients she misses them?" He sighed. Annoyed. "You're overthinking this." I wanted to believe him so badly that I let the moment pass. But after that day, my heart never rested. I began noticing things I had ignored before. The new shirts he bought without telling me. The sudden gym sessions. The expensive cologne. The way he smiled at his phone, soft and secret. One evening, while washing dishes, I heard him in the hallway whispering, "Yes. I know. I'll come tonight." When he saw me, he jumped. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "Work." He said again, "Always work." But work never made a man look that nervous. The night everything ended came on a rainy Thursday. Daniel came home unusually early. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the wood. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk." Those 4 words, they destroy more lives than wars. I felt cold all over. "What's wrong?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "I'm not happy anymore." The room seemed to tilt. "Not happy? With what?" "With us," he said. My throat closed. "Since when?" For a while, I forced myself to stay calm. "We can fix things. We can talk, go to counseling, take time. There's someone else," he said suddenly. The words fell between us like broken glass. I stared at him, unable to breathe. "What?" "Her name is Emily," he said. "I didn't plan this. It just happened." My vision blurred. "How long?" 8 months. 8 months. While I cooked his meals. While I washed his clothes. While I waited for him every night. "Do you love her?" I whispered. He hesitated. That hesitation destroyed me more than any answer. "Yes," he said finally. The sound that left my mouth was not human. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. "So what now?" I cried. "You confess and then what? You expect me to smile?" "I'm leaving," he said. The world stopped. "Leaving? Where?" "With her." I laughed hysterically. "You're joking." He shook his head. Tears streamed down my face as I begged him. Yes, begged. I am not ashamed to admit it. "Daniel, please. We built a life, 12 years. You can't throw it away for a woman you barely know." "She understands me," he said quietly. That sentence cut deeper than any knife. "I understand you," I screamed. "I stood by you when no one else did." "I'm sorry," he said, standing up. "But my decision is final." I followed him to the bedroom, sobbing, watching him pack clothes into a suitcase. Every shirt he folded felt like another memory dying. "What about our dreams?" I asked. "Our future?" He didn't answer. When he zipped the bag, I collapsed onto the bed. "Please don't go," I whispered. "I can change. I can be better." He looked at me with pity. And that was the moment I knew. I had already lost him. At the door, he paused. "I'll come back for the rest of my things later," he said. Then he left. The door closed with a soft click. And with it, my marriage ended. I stayed on the floor for hours. I don't remember how long I cried. The house felt enormous. Without him. Every corner whispered his name. His mug in the sink. His jacket on the chair. His pillow still warm. That night, I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain hit the windows, wondering how love could disappear so quietly. The next days were torture. Friends called. Family visited. Everyone offered advice, sympathy, anger, but nothing filled the emptiness. 1 week later, I went to the grocery store and saw them together. Daniel and Emily. She was younger than me. Beautiful in a careless way. Laughing as he whispered something in her ear. They didn't see me, but I saw everything. And in that moment, something inside me finally broke. I went home, locked the door, and cried until my body shook. That was the day I understood a cruel truth. The man I loved more than my own life had chosen someone else, and I was completely alone. If you're still with me, thank you for listening to my pain. In the next part of this story, I will tell you how I survived the darkest period of my life, how I lost everything, and how slowly I began to rise again, because this is not the end. This is only the beginning. The days after Daniel left felt longer than years. Every morning, I woke up expecting him to come home, to smile at me from the kitchen, to bring me coffee with that same quiet grin. But the silence was absolute. I would sit on the edge of our bed, staring at the empty side, and my chest would tighten until I couldn't breathe. Every object in our house became a dagger. The dishes he once washed, the sheets he once slept on, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the living room. They all reminded me that he had chosen someone else. And I had been discarded like an old toy. I tried to eat, but food tasted like ash. I tried to sleep, but dreams betrayed me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel and Emily, their laughter echoing through the house like a mocking song. My friends said, "Time heals everything." But time was cruel. It did nothing. Days blurred into nights, and nights blurred into endless crying sessions that left me shaking and hollow. Even my family struggled to comfort me. My mother, worried and trembling, would hold me while I sobbed uncontrollably. "Sarah, you're strong," she would whisper. But inside, I didn't feel strong. I felt like a body moving through a world that no longer belonged to me. My father would avoid looking at me, unsure of what to say, and my siblings gave me polite, worried smiles, as if they were afraid their words might shatter me even further. Work became a refuge, but only barely. I buried myself in spreadsheets and emails, typing mechanically, nodding to colleagues, laughing when required, all while my heart bled silently in the corner. Each day was a performance, a mask I wore for the world, while inside I screamed. Some nights I would drive aimlessly through the city, windows down, letting the cold wind cut my face, hoping pain could somehow cleanse itself if I let it in. Then came the whispers. I started noticing people's reactions. The neighbor who once waved now avoided eye contact. The woman at the grocery store stared longer than necessary, her expression a mixture of pity and judgment. I heard fragments of conversations as people walked by. Her husband left her. She didn't see it coming. Poor girl. I felt exposed, humiliated, as if my pain was a public spectacle. The most painful moment came when I ran into Daniel by accident. I had gone to the park to clear my mind, hoping that fresh air might soothe the ache in my chest. And there he was, laughing, arm around Emily, radiant as if nothing had ever happened. My knees nearly gave out. My stomach twisted. I wanted to run, to disappear, to scream at the injustice of it all. But instead, I froze, unable to move, watching the life I once shared with him exist somewhere else, without me. At that moment, I hated him. I hated Emily. I hated myself for trusting, for loving, for believing in forever. The rage and heartbreak were suffocating. I spent the night awake, thinking, remembering, regretting every word I had said to him, every compromise, every moment I had sacrificed. But amidst the endless sorrow, something small began to stir. A single tiny spark I didn't recognize at first. The first night I stayed awake without crying, I noticed it. A whisper in the back of my mind saying, "You're still here. You're still alive. And you deserve more than this." The first step of survival came from the smallest action. I made myself coffee in the morning. I brushed my hair. I answered emails at work without bursting into tears. It felt insignificant, almost laughable, but it was progress. Slowly, day by day, I began to reclaim the small pieces of myself that Daniel's betrayal had shattered. Financial struggles followed closely. He had been the primary earner, and I had given up a promotion once because he wanted me home more often. Suddenly, bills became mountains, groceries became challenges. Rent became a terrifying reminder of the life I no longer had. I learned how to budget from scratch, how to ask for extensions, how to negotiate. Each step, though painful, gave me a strange kind of empowerment. Every phone call to the utility company, every payment, every receipt, became a small victory. One day, I ran into an old friend, Jessica, who hadn't seen me since the separation. Her eyes widened when she saw how fragile I looked. "Sarah, oh my God, I didn't know it was that bad." Her words were gentle, but I realized then that my pain was visible. and the world could see it. I nodded, forcing a smile. Hiding the storm within. At night, the loneliness was the hardest. I would sit by the window, staring at the city lights, wishing for something, anything, to make the darkness stop pressing against me. The nights were filled with the echo of memories. Daniel's laugh, his hand in mine, the words we promised each other. I wondered if he ever thought of me, if he ever regretted the choice he made. But I quickly pushed the thought away, knowing that hope for him would be poison to my own survival. I started journaling. At first, it was just a list of emotions, raw and untamed. I hate him, I hate her, I am alone. Then slowly, the writing changed. I can survive, I will survive, I am still me. Those words became my mantra. They were clumsy at first, but they worked. With every sentence, I reclaimed a fragment of my dignity, a fragment of my strength. Friends became lifelines. Slowly, I let a few people in, not everyone, only those I trusted. We talked, laughed, cried together. I realized that even if Daniel had abandoned me, the world still had pockets of warmth. I began to smile again, first faintly, then more freely. I went to the gym, started walking longer distances, and even treated myself to small luxuries. A new dress, a massage, a book that had nothing to do with survival. But nothing prepared me for the first night I walked past our old house. I had taken a new route home from work, trying to avoid memories, trying to protect the small new world I was building. But there it was, lights glowing warmly inside. Daniel and Emily moving around together, smiling, laughing. My chest ached. My hands shook. I wanted to scream, to curse the universe, to collapse on the sidewalk. But instead, I took a deep breath and walked past. And in that moment, something shifted. The rage remained, yes. The heartbreak remained, yes. But I realized I was still walking. I was still breathing. And somehow, I had begun to live without him. Months passed. I got a promotion at work, one I had refused before. I met new people, colleagues who admired my intelligence, my resilience. I started saving money, small amounts at first, then larger sums. I decorated my apartment the way I wanted. I went to movies alone. I ate at restaurants alone. I traveled short distances alone. Each of these actions, simple as they seemed, built me up. They reminded me that life could exist, even thrive, without the man who once said he loved me. Daniel's name became less toxic with time. When I heard it in conversation, I didn't shiver anymore. When his messages appeared on social media, I ignored them. I no longer obsessed over Emily's life, no longer compared myself. For the first time in months, I felt a strange kind of freedom. Yet every now and then, late at night, I would wonder if he ever thought of me. Not with love, not with desire, only with regret. It was a dangerous thought, and I quickly pushed it away. My life was mine now. Not his. Not hers. Mine. One evening, as I sipped tea on my balcony, a soft breeze brushing my face, I realized something profound. I had survived the darkest, coldest, most humiliating days of my life. I had rebuilt myself from fragments, from heartbreak, from betrayal. And while the scars remained, they were no longer chains. They were proof. Proof that I was strong. Proof that I could endure. Proof that I could rise. Little did I know that the true test of that strength was yet to come. Because life has a way of circling back. And sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried. If you stay tuned, the next part of this story will reveal how Sarah's transformation turns her into someone Daniel could never ignore. How she rises so high that her power becomes undeniable, and how the knock on her door begins a chain of events that will shock and inspire you. Months had passed since that painful, unforgettable evening when Daniel walked out of my life, leaving me shattered and alone. Those months of grief, despair, and humiliation had forged something I had never expected: resilience. It started quietly, imperceptibly, like a tiny flame in the darkness. But over time, that flame grew, warming parts of me I had thought would forever remain cold. I was no longer just surviving. I was beginning to thrive. I started small. A new apartment, fresh paint on the walls, a single plant on the windowsill that I named Lily. Simple things, yet they reminded me that life, even broken and incomplete, was still mine. I worked harder than ever at my job. I threw myself into projects that demanded creativity and precision, impressing colleagues and supervisors alike. My confidence grew not because I wanted revenge, but because I realized my value had never depended on Daniel's love. It had always existed, waiting for me to claim it. Evenings became my sanctuary. I would curl up with books I had long ignored, exploring stories of women who overcame impossible odds, feeling a kinship with their courage. I started running, first around my block, then through city parks, the rhythm of my steps matching the rhythm of my heart, steady, unyielding. I laughed again, small bursts at first, then louder, more genuine. Life was no longer a cage. It was a canvas, and I was painting it in the colors I chose. And yet, even as I rose, the shadow of Daniel's betrayal lingered. I refused to dwell on him, but news inevitably reached me. Mutual friends whispered updates. Daniel had moved in with Emily. Their life seemed perfect from the outside, but I didn't envy them. I had learned that jealousy was a trap. Instead, I focused on building a life so full and vibrant that it left no room for regrets. I began to expand my social circle, meeting people who shared my values and ambitions. I joined a community book club, met colleagues for after-work dinners, and even attended a weekend art workshop. Every connection, every friendship, strengthened me. I realized that while Daniel had chosen Emily, the world had not abandoned me. I had a network, a life, a heartbeat that belonged solely to me. Professionally, my career began to soar. I received recognition at work for leading a major project that had previously been considered too risky. Colleagues started consulting me for advice, admiring my insight and decisiveness. The woman who had once doubted herself, who had collapsed under heartbreak, was now commanding rooms, speaking with authority, earning respect. It was intoxicating, not because I wanted power, but because I finally understood the depth of my own worth. And then came the opportunity that changed everything. A promotion I had long aspired to opened up at work, director of a department that had always seemed beyond my reach. I applied, not expecting to get it. But when I received the call confirming my appointment, something inside me ignited. I had done it. Without Daniel, without anyone else's approval, I had carved my path. I was no longer the woman who cried in silence, hoping her husband would return. I was a force unto myself, unstoppable and unapologetic. My personal life transformed. As well, I explored new hobbies, traveled to nearby cities alone, and started investing in things that made me happy. I redecorated my apartment to reflect the woman I had become, modern, vibrant, confident. I no longer waited for someone else to validate my choices. Every decision was mine, and every victory, no matter how small, was sweeter because I had earned it. But life, as it often does, has a way of preparing you for the moments you least expect. One evening, as I was returning from a meeting, a familiar face caught my attention across the street. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. Daniel. He was walking with Emily, arm around her shoulders, laughing in a way that had once made me ache. To be the woman he held. Now I felt nothing but calm observation. He didn't see me. He had no idea the woman he had left for another now stood so far above the person he had tried to break. It was a turning point. I realized then that my life no longer revolved around his choices, his happiness, or his approval. I was a complete person, whole and self-reliant. And yet, a part of me, the part that had loved him once so fiercely, couldn't deny the lingering curiosity. Would he recognize me if he saw me now? Would he feel a spark of regret, even a tiny pang of loss? The next few weeks brought subtle signs that life was beginning to circle back in unexpected ways. I received messages from old colleagues praising my recent achievements. Invitations to events and networking opportunities arrived in my inbox. Even Daniel's friends, people who had once treated me with condescension, began acknowledging my presence in social circles. The realization hit me like a wave. I was not invisible. I had grown beyond the shadows of my past, and then came the knock on the door. It was late evening. I had just returned from a business dinner, feeling content and accomplished, when the sound startled me. I paused, listening. Tap, tap, tap. Again. Deliberate, hesitant. My first instinct was caution. I peered through the peephole, and my heart thudded in a way I hadn't expected. There he was. Daniel. Standing on my doorstep, rain beginning to dampen his hair and shoulders, eyes wide, nervous, almost pleading. I blinked, unable to speak for a moment. My mind raced, memories of heartbreak colliding with the woman I had become. Behind him, a car pulled away silently, and I realized Emily was nowhere in sight. He had come alone. My pulse quickened, but not from fear. From curiosity. From the anticipation of the moment I had unconsciously prepared for. The man who had left me now seeking me out. I opened the door just a crack, keeping my voice steady. "Daniel," I said. My voice was calm, controlled, almost indifferent. "Sarah?" he whispered, his tone trembling. "Can we talk? Please, just for a few minutes." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Part of me wanted to hear him, to see the man who had broken me reduced to a shadow of his former confidence. But most of all, I felt a strange, empowering calm. I was ready. Not for reconciliation, not for submission, but to face him as the woman I had become. I stepped aside, gesturing him in. The air between us was thick with memories and unspoken words. The room smelled faintly of my perfume and freshly brewed tea, a combination that seemed to anchor me to the present. Daniel entered, looking smaller somehow, the confident aura he once carried diminished. He avoided my gaze, shuffling his feet slightly. He began, struggling for words. "I know I've made mistakes. I interrupted him gently but firmly. "You did. You left, you abandoned me for her. And now you're here." My voice was steady, and I could feel my own power in it. "Why?" He swallowed, his Adam's apple moving nervously. I made a terrible mistake, Sarah. Everything I thought I wanted, I lost. Emily, she left me. I realized too late. What I threw away, you were everything." For a brief moment, I saw the man I had loved, the man I had once dreamed of a future with. But I didn't let nostalgia take hold. I stood tall, my posture commanding. "Daniel, look at me," I said. "I am not the woman you left. I am not waiting for you. I don't need your apology to feel whole." His shoulders slumped. I could see the regret written across his face, but it no longer frightened me. I had grown beyond fear, beyond heartbreak, beyond the need for validation from the man who had once broken me. He looked around the room, taking in the changes, the new decor, the vibrant energy, the aura of a life fully lived. You've changed," he murmured. I smiled, not a smile of warmth, but of triumph. "Yes, Daniel, I have. And this is just the beginning." As he stood there, rain dripping from his hair, I realized that the power dynamics had shifted. The man who had once held my world in his hands was now the one standing at the threshold of my success, pleading silently for what he had taken for granted. And I, Sarah, the woman he had abandoned, was no longer just a survivor. I was a force. A life rebuilt, stronger and untouchable. I left him standing there in the hallway, the silence between us heavy with truth. There would be time to decide what I wanted to do with him. But for now, I had won the most important victory of all. I had reclaimed myself. And deep down, I knew that the next part of this story would test not only his regret but the boundaries of my strength. Because sometimes the past doesn't just knock once. Sometimes it demands to see the woman you have become. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening with reflections of city lights. Daniel stood on my doorstep that evening, soaked and silent, the kind of silence that once would have broken me. Now I stood across from him, steady, poised, and completely in control. The woman he had abandoned, the one he had once believed he could walk away from without consequence, had returned, not as a shadow of sorrow, but as a force he could not ignore. Sarah, he began, voice cracking. Please, I need to explain. I know I hurt you and I held up my hand, stopping him. My heart was calm, but my eyes burned with a strength that had been forged in fire. Daniel, I said slowly, you don't get to explain anything. You left, you chose her. You abandoned 12 years of life, love, and promises. And now, you're here. But it's not your apology I need, it's your recognition of what you lost. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple moving nervously. His confident posture had vanished. He looked smaller, diminished. I made a mistake. I realize now, you were the one I should have valued. Please, I can't live without you. I beg you, let me back into your life. I shook my head, taking a deliberate step closer, looking him in the eyes, feeling the power that once had been his entirely. Return to me. Daniel, listen carefully. Do you see me? My voice was steady, unwavering. Do you see what I've built without you? The woman who sits before you is not waiting for you. She is not broken. She is not yours to take back. Tears streamed down his face, unashamed, raw, desperate. I never realized what I had. I left, and now I've lost everything. Emily left me. My job is failing. I have nothing. But you're everything. Please, Sarah, I was wrong. I swear I'll do anything to make it right. I stepped closer, tilting my head, watching the man I had once loved crumble. But this time I did not feel fear. I did not feel sadness. I felt triumph. Every night of crying, every lonely moment, every humiliation had led to this moment. I was not vulnerable anymore. I was invincible. Daniel, I said softly but with authority, I loved you once. I gave you everything. You chose someone else. You shattered my heart, and yet I survived. I rebuilt my life, my strength, my happiness. And now you come crawling back, expecting me to kneel at your feet and forgive you? That is not who I am anymore. He sank onto the edge of the sofa, shoulders slumped, hands covering his face. His desperation was palpable, but my voice remained calm, unwavering. I am not here to punish you. I am here to show you what happens when you betray someone who truly loves you. Look around, Daniel. This is my life. I did this. I achieved this without you. And that is the ultimate truth. Daniel lifted his head slightly, tears streaking his cheeks. Sarah, please, I can change. I'll do anything. Just give me a chance. I stepped back, taking a deep breath, savoring the moment. Daniel, no, I will not give you a chance. Not now. Not ever. My life is mine, and I will not allow the man who left me for another to step back in and disrupt the peace I've fought to create. He tried to speak again, but I silenced him with a gentle shake of my head. It's over. Do you understand? It's over. I forgive myself for letting you hurt me, but I will never forget the lesson you taught me. And now, I am free. He sat in stunned silence, tears falling freely, finally knowing, that the woman he had once abandoned would never be his again. For the first time, he felt the weight of his choices. The life he had tried to build without me had crumbled. He was alone, broken, and powerless. I walked past him to the window, looking out at the city that shimmered like my own future, bright, untouchable, limitless. I could feel the strength in every step, the confidence in every heartbeat. Daniel had begged, pleaded, and suffered, but none of it mattered anymore. The victory was mine, not over him, but over the past, over the pain, over every moment when I had thought I couldn't survive. For a long moment, he remained on the sofa, watching me, silent and defeated. I turned, giving him one final look. A look not of anger, but of triumph. I hope one day you understand what you lost, I said, voice soft, steady, and final. Because I will never let you touch this life again. And with that, I closed the door, the click of the lock. Behind me was more than a sound. It was a declaration. The woman who had been left broken was now unbreakable. The woman who had been betrayed was now unstoppable. The woman who had been humiliated was now untouchable. I had survived the unimaginable, and in doing so, I had discovered the most powerful truth. Nothing and no one can destroy a person who has rebuilt herself from the ashes of betrayal. I leaned against the door, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of freedom settle across my shoulders. The storm of grief, despair, and heartbreak that had once consumed me had been replaced by clarity, power, and peace. I had fought for every piece of this life. Every tear, every lonely night, every moment of fear had forged the person I had become. And now nothing, not even the man who once claimed to love me, could take it away. The rain had stopped, but I felt something even more powerful. The sunlight of my own self-respect, my own victory pouring into every corner of my heart. Life had returned to me in full color, and I embraced it without hesitation, without fear, without compromise. So to anyone watching this story today, know this. No matter how deep the betrayal, how crushing the heartbreak, how impossible the darkness may seem, you can rise, you can rebuild. You can become stronger than you ever imagined. And when the past comes knocking, you will be ready, strong, confident, untouchable. If you are struggling with heartbreak, betrayal, or loss, remember Sarah's story. She went from despair to power, from humiliation to triumph. And so can you. Every step you take toward yourself, every moment you reclaim for your own life, is a victory, and no one can ever take that away. If you found strength in this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Comment below with your thoughts, your experiences, or simply the word strong if Sarah's journey inspired you. And remember, your story isn't over. The best chapters are always ahead, because sometimes the greatest revenge is living well.